Hello, my friends. This is Sheila Pearl, the Love Doctor. Let's talk about making love better. And today I've invited a very good friend of mine and colleague of mine, Marie Vega-Byrne. And I'm going to just give you a little backstory. Marie and I met in a women's networking organization years ago, about 15 years ago. Right, Marie?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that. It's been that long already, huh?
And fast forward to 2008, we took a cruise. We took a cruise with Bob Proctor and friends.
Oh boy, yes, I remember
About,
that.
yeah, about 2,000 of Bob Proctor's friends got on this ship. We met down in Florida. We took a cruise to the Caribbean. And on the cruise, I approached Bob Proctor to uh, ask if he would write the foreword for a book that I had co-authored with a friend. And he agreed. So that was a nice gift for that ship, for that tour, for that cruise.
Oh, but let's be honest, you pursued him.
Oh, I pursued him.
You pursued him.
I followed him all over. In fact, when I saw him the first night, just to say hello, he said, "Just follow me and persist." And I did.
And you were persistent. Yes, yes.
The night before we disembarked back in Florida. So, but he said yes, and he applauded my persistence. By the way, one of the other gifts on our cruise was Marie meeting Mary Morrissey, who was one of Bob's good friends and one of the speakers that was available on this wonderful cruise. And Marie was inspired to work with Mary Morrissey, and she got her special super duper training as what you call it, a dream coach, or
A life mastery consultant.
thank you, life mastery consultant. And Mary Morrissey is the best, and Marie studied at the feet of the masters, as they say, and
Oh, yeah.
is now a life mastery consultant. So and so I've watched Marie go through many iterations and reinventions of herself, as I have as well. So in thinking about who I would like to have a conversation with and talking about making love better, I couldn't think of a person I'd more rather have that conversation with in terms of dreaming big, having the right mindset for loving and for life. And so when I talked to Marie about what she wanted to focus on in terms of the topic, she says, I want to talk about having it all. And I'm going to let her explain that to you. But I want to begin this conversation with a little overlay of a concept about loving that comes from Erich Fromm in his book, The Art of Loving. He says, love is an attitude, an orientation of character, and your sacred uniqueness. He says, love is not primarily a relationship to a specific person. It is an attitude, an orientation of character which determines the relatedness of a person to the world as a whole, not toward one object of love. So what Erich Fromm talks about is the concept that love is a state of being, that we are, each of us, born to love. We are each of us born to dream. We are each of us born to believe and to live with the belief that we are each enough and we are whole and unique and precious. And so often in my experience over the past 40 years with working with individuals and couples and families around this subject of making love better, I've discovered that one of the main stumbling blocks for most people in having satisfying, loving connections is their mindset, the way they think, often being afraid that they're not enough. And I think, Marie, you and I understand that if I believe I'm not enough, I'm going to be looking to someone else to somehow complete me or convince me that I am enough or help me prove to myself I'm enough. And if that person gives me the message that I'm not enough, then we've got war going on.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I want you to share with us what your concept is in having it all, because, that could be a double-edged sword, right? The whole idea of having it all could very well be a trap, but I want you to explain what your thoughts are.
So when Sheila first asked me to do this, it was very interesting. I started to delve or go back deep into my own self. What did that mean, having it all? It was the first thing I thought about, because I have been working with others about this concept of, well, we want it all. Why can't we have it all? From a business point of view, why can't I be a mom? Why can't I have a career? Why can't I have a relationship? Why can't I have the education? And if I want two careers or a business as I'm building it, why can't I have it all? Have it all. And so I've been thinking a lot about this. And so this was so perfect timing, because having the love relationship and making love better begins with yourself, at least how I'm seeing it. And having it all begins with me. If I'm not self-fulfilled, then I'm never going to feel fulfilled, or I'm always going to be searching for more. So that the balance, there's no balance. And that's that double-edged swords that you were talking about, because I'm always looking for something else to fill whatever it is that I think I'm missing. Um, and having it all is believing that you have it all.
And that's a major challenge for, I would say, so many people that you and I know, Marie, where if they were raised in a family where they got the message that they weren't enough, where they didn't have a role model of someone that was loving and giving and generous. I often say to people, I wish for everyone that they had had the mother I had, because that mother, she should rest in peace, was my best friend. She was my role model. And she gave me the experience of being enough, of being worthy of love, and being capable of doing anything that I wanted. So, but many of us in life do not, many of the people I work with, maybe people you work with, Marie, do not have that blessing. They do not have that advantage. So many people say, well, I don't know how to love myself. I don't I don't feel like I'm enough. And I've got a client who's in her early 60s, and she's so obsessed with body image, and she wants to go get Botox, and she wants to, she's going to go on a diet. Well, she already, to me, is twiggy. And but it's like she's never thin enough. She never looks young enough, and she's got this chin. Well, I have a chin, but I'm not rushing out to get cosmetic surgery, because to me, I understand I am enough, chin or no chin. Right.
It's very interesting that you talk about your mom that way. I grew up in a very loving environment. However, I had double-edged swords with both my parents. And it wasn't until I got to be a little bit older, as a young woman growing up, I was always taught that I heard from my father that I wasn't enough, or that I would never be, or that it would never happen. Um, no, college isn't for women, because you're going to grow up and get married and have babies, and what are you going to do? And my mother was pushing and pushing and pushing on the other side with, you have to be better, you have to be perfect, you have to achieve more. So that created such a sense of, I was never in a space of comfortableness with my own skin. I created that comfortableness. I took what I learned and I pushed myself through. I often express it as, going through the keyhole. I made myself fit through the keyhole. If I needed to be more for business, then I was more for business. If I needed to, if I was feeling less than, or that I wasn't going to be enough because I wasn't good enough, I pushed myself to be better. So there was always that conflict. There was always that rage going on inside of me. And to be perfectly honest, it led me to the bottle. I'm in recovery today, a few 24 hours, but it pushed me into that space of, that was my comfort zone. And that comfort zone almost destroyed me.
Exactly, because it wasn't a comfort zone at all.
No.
That was and I was just about to say, I'm glad you shared that, because so often it's that a prelude to addiction that you're describing. The prelude to addiction is all the things that we do to numb ourselves from the fear of not being enough.
Mm-hmm. And in reality, all I was doing exactly was doing that, was numbing myself, and I was throwing away everything that I did have. Um, the concept of getting sober was so, the aliveness that came through that, and the friendships that came from that, and the space of, I didn't have to try to be something I wasn't. But it wasn't magical. It didn't happen overnight. It took many years to get to that space that I was in. And it took many years after that to get to the space of feeling more comfortable in my own skin and who I am.
Debbie Ford, of course, taught about this, wrote about this in her work. She was one of my coaches, by the way. And she really formulated the whole idea of the shadow,
Mm,
the the blessings of the shadow, and the gifts of the shadow. In other words, when we are brought to our knees, when we hit that wall, we are forced to choose between life and death in a very dramatic way, and so many of us in many different ways reach that wall. And what you're describing is that you were brought to your knees at a particular point in time.
yes, yes. And she talks about, it's interesting because Debbie Ford talks about, lying on the kitchen floor, and just like, oh, wow, what, this was her bottom. This was her space of eye-opening realism that if she didn't make a choice to shift her mindset, she was going to die.
That's right.
And death comes in many ways. It's not just physical death. It's the emotional death. It's
The
the
death,
mind. It's
the death of the heart, the death of
yep.
the spirit, the death of dreaming, the death of living fully.
Yeah.
Living
So,
fully.
and when you want to make love better, you have to begin with loving yourself. So the first process is saying you're worth it. You're worthy of it. Brene Brown talks about this in the gift and the gifts of imperfection, and
Yes.
she talks about worthiness. We are women, and what I'm noticing in my travels is that we are taught that we are not worthy. It's a learned behavior. However, we teach our young men that they are the sun, the moon, the stars, and everybody should be, looking over them and saying, "You're here." Yeah, we still do transfer that feeling of unworthiness to our sons, because if you watch them as they're growing up, they're always striving for more, because that's that level of, I'm not enough, I need more, I have to have more. And it's not just in money and a job or a career or your home. It's that, what's going on inside of you personally, inside your heart. So I've looked at my own life.
You have to. So, I mean, as you know, Marie, I have established many different coaching programs over the years, and one of the more recent is called Into Me See.
Mm,
Into Me See, and it's all about it's my self-love coaching program, but it's all about being willing to see into myself to the point where I accept myself. First of all, I have to see so I can accept. I have to acknowledge all of my nooks and crannies, all of my perfect imperfections, which is, one of the things Brene Brown talks about, the gifts of imperfection, is that we're all imperfect. And the gifts of our imperfection is to recognize that we're all in the same boat, right?
yep.
And so the gifts of imperfection, for instance, I'm the queen of clutter. So if someone says, "Boy, you're really a clutterer," I can say, "Yeah, I am."
And
Right?
accept it and acknowledge
I
it.
accept,
And
and I hire an assistant to help clean up my clutter. Right?
oh, maybe I might be hiring her soon sometime. Because I have, that's the space that but you know what, again, you acknowledge it and you accept it. You know, when I first got sober, the first part of it was accepting that this was something very real in my life. And not just accepting it, acknowledging it, accepting it, and then stepping away and giving it to my higher power, and giving it to my she to say, okay, someone else has to carry me a little while.
Beautiful. And here's the magic. When I can accept me for all my perfect imperfections, when I can accept me with even a sense of humor about all the things about me that if you were said, oh, you're fat, or you're, you know, I mean, according to some scales, I might be fat, right? But I accept that I'm heavier than perhaps I would like to be or would be ideal. I accept that I'm a clutterer. I accept that I've got lots of projects that aren't done.
So I have a magnet on the side of my desk over here, and it says, I am a big woman and I love it. It takes a big body to contain all this fabulousness.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And I look at that every day because I am a big woman and I accept it.
Yes, I mean, a couple of the more important men in my life have always said, "You're a big woman and you're delicious." So, I mean, but the point is, if I can accept me with all of my perfect imperfections, don't you think it's going to be easier for me to accept you for all of
Yes.
yours? And if I can accept me and I'm not on the defensive for any perceived or real attacks or criticisms, then I'm going to be in a state of equanimity or balance in accepting the other people in my life for all of their imperfections too. Because what I do know, Marie, and we talked about this many times, where there's judgment, love goes on vacation.
Oh, vacation, and sometimes it stays there. It doesn't just go on vacation; it moves out. And but it takes, you know, the one thing that you know, you can have all this awareness and you can be very accepting, but we're human. And there are times where that humanness does um, kick in. I call it the, you know, it's the horse rearing up its back end and saying, it's kicking up its legs and it's saying, oh, you know, you go through the moments of, I don't feel right. I don't look right. I don't sound right. I don't. And we all go, I shouldn't say we all, speak for myself. I go through that periodically where my levels of security with myself, they kind of get a little shaky. And I have to remind myself, and some of the things that I have around my office are the reminders to, you know, when I start to feel that way, to focus on something positive and to focus on something that is going to help take that dislike or disenchantment with myself and turn it back into myself and remind myself that I can love myself and that I can, like you said, love myself with all of my perfect imperfections. But you go through moments like this, and relationships are a big part of that. I've been married. Oh, gee, Bill and I will be married 25 years this year.
Is it really? My
Yeah,
good. When I first met you, you were just on the cusp of maybe celebrating your 10th.
just about. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
just about. And it's amazing when I look back at how we met, where we went, you know, as we started to travel our relationship, where we went to, the spaces that we've gone to, and the spaces that we've come back from. So when you talk about vacation, yes, not going to say that, you know, our relationship has been 100% perfect, because there have been moments where we've wondered whether or not this was the right thing for us. Um,
Well,
so it's been a very interesting travel.
and Marie, isn't that the dance of life? I mean,
Yes.
isn't that the dance of intimate relationships, of romantic relationships, even the dance of familial relationships between parents and children, and between siblings and all the close relationships? We are bound to have wrestling matches with ourselves and the others that we we claim to love, and sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, because this is life, and so we need to forgive ourselves for being perfectly imperfect. As you say, so many people say, well, I wasn't perfect. Well, of course you weren't perfect. We're human beings, right? But there's something in that little introductory phrase that's kind of like an apology. Well, I'm not perfect.
When somebody says to me that they're not perfect, I say, okay, tell me somebody that is.
Not,
Give me evidence that there is perfect somewhere.
well, not even the Dalai Lama, right?
No.
I mean,
And he says that he knows it.
he does, and he's got a great sense of humor, and he's taught us all the value of laughing a
No.
lot.
I think anybody that really is in a space like the Dalai Lama, like Mary Morrissey, like Bob Proctor, Les Brown, one of my favorites, my all-time favorites. Les talks about how he picked himself up from sleeping in an office to being where he is today. He's a multinational speaker, worldwide, creating all kinds of opportunities, but he had to learn to love himself because he was always told that he was the dumb one.
Exactly. So don't believe what other people tell you. Don't
Exactly.
don't
Yes.
believe what other people think about you. Les Brown, as you know, is one of my mentors as well, and I learned at his feet as well that
We
important.
traveled a lot of the same circles, and I think it's because we started with the cruise.
We did.
Or I should say, I started with the cruise.
So and one of the things that I know is tremendously important in terms of self love and love of others is this aspect of forgiveness. We owe it to ourselves to forgive ourselves for having fallen down, made mistakes, fallen short of our own goals and dreams, because this is also part of the human condition. And so we always need to replace judgment with compassion, and that's where forgiveness comes into the picture.
Yes. And again, the forgiveness starts with self. You know, um, if you're not willing to forgive yourself for not loving yourself quite as much as you could, not should, but could,
Hmm.
it's hard to open up to receive anything. One of the other things that we talked about earlier when I was saying about what having it all, um, opening yourself up to receive, or I should say to give first, because giving, when you're open to giving, you're also open to receiving. And that synchronicity of going back and forth allows you to give more, but more, and I don't want to say more in terms of um, more, bigger, but to go deeper. But the same thing is what you receive is deeper.
Well, what you're talking about is the necessity and the magic of reciprocity.
Yes.
So when you have that energy and intention and action of reciprocity, you don't even know where the giving and receiving begins and ends.
Yes. Yes.
Because you are open to the giving and you're open to the receiving. So that cycle of energy just keeps looping around, right?
Yes.
And so often, the challenge many people have when they don't believe they're not enough and they do believe that they are unworthy, they also don't believe they're worthy of receiving. So they stop that flow of the loop. They hold off that giving and receiving reciprocity, which creates obstruction and stuck state in the relationship. And that's where people get into trouble and they are not able to love better because they're not able to receive fully.
Hmm.
In fact, most people are much more able to give than to receive.
Oh, that was always my space. It was always much easier for me. And I catch myself still to this day where I will give way more then I allow myself to receive. And I have to I have to be aware of the energy flow. When that happens, I notice that my energy becomes very sapped. That I begin to, my negativity, that the thinking about myself starts to, oh, well, I'm doing. And then I have to stop and go, whoa, wait a minute. What was and again, it's what's the awareness of what derailed me off my circle? What took me off that circle and pushed me into another direction? And then once I start to recognize that, I slowly bring it back. It's not I don't do this quick thing. I slowly bring it back and I get back onto that. Okay, now I'm in a better space of giving and receiving. And we were at a meeting the other night, and one of the things that came up was no is a complete sentence.
Absolutely. Sometimes, engaging in self-love, we have to learn when to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So we can say yes to the things that serve us.
Yes.
So I want you to underscore what your concept is, which I love, of being able to have it all. Because sometimes, that, as I said, that it sounds like a trap. And I want you to underscore what that is for you so that our listeners can kind of wrap their arms around that concept of having it all in the way that you envision it.
So looking at that, I have a coaching business, Beyond Ruby's Coaching, and I coach differently than other coaches, or I should say, when I say differently, not the methodology, but my structure. A lot of my clients we come in the mornings, we come in the evenings, we come in the weekends. And I found that worked well for me because I'm still doing paralegal work for an attorney. And for a while, I would think, this is just crazy. Why can't I just do one or the other? And I realized I loved the energy that the paralegal world brought me. I loved working with clients. I loved working with the attorneys. I loved putting the pieces of the puzzle together when I was doing something with a title, or that really that fed my mind. And it fed my soul because I got to see closings where people were very happy when they walked away. They bought their house. The biggest decision, for some people, sometimes the hardest decision. And that was so self-gratifying for me that I was part of that process. I didn't like and I still don't like always, the structure behind it, what I call the 9-to-5er stuff. So I've had to reshift some of that stuff. But I also still wanted to have my coaching business and my coaching practice. And my sense of, how could I have it all? I want it all. How could I have it all? Well, I couldn't have it all until I began to accept that I could. And that I was worthy of it, I deserved it, and it was okay to say no and to say yes. To say no to the things that didn't serve the process, and to say yes to the things that did.
So I want you to underscore that again. I I want you to restate that. What did it take for you to experience that you could have it all? What was the magic sauce there? What was the
So the magic secret is, there is no magic secret. The magic secret is that I had to make that decision.
Well, I think
So when I say there's no magic sauce, it was and
no, but you said you had to believe you could have it all.
the belief is the magic
The
sauce.
belief is the magic sauce or the secret sauce, whatever we want to call it, because it's not so much what you say you want.
It's how you do it and what you do it.
What you believe you can have.
Well, believing it, once you believe it, then yes, then how you go about doing it up levels the belief system. So the thought process of accepting that you can, you're worthy, believing, then the how. It's the process of, I first have to say, shift my mind and my energies around the I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can. I
And,
believe it. You're right.
and
It's more it's the belief. And but when we talk about, so when I say to people there's no secret sauce, it's not a secret. Maybe that's what it is for me when I say that. It's not a secret.
well, it's a secret from a lot of people because they don't even.
Yes.
So it's the best kept secret, right?
Yes.
Not because somebody's holding on to it, keeping it a secret, but it's probably the best kept secret because a lot of people don't even think that way. They don't realize that, oh, I could have what I say I want if and when I believe that I can have what I say and want.
No, there it is. If and when I believe. But
But how? But how
I've
do
already put that in front of myself, like, wow, if and when. It you, you just do. I mean, so that sentence of if and when I believe it, well, guess what? If you keep for me, if I keep telling myself that when I get around to believing it,
oh, I
then
see.
I can have it. You see
Okay,
where I'm going with that?
I do. So the belief in something actually takes a leap of faith. It takes, pardon my French, a hell of a lot of courage.
Yes.
Because I would say the overwhelming majority of people in the world are afraid to dream big or to even hope for something that they really desire and want because they're afraid they can't have it.
Well, not only that they can't have it, they're not worthy of it. So I'll give you another great example of taking the leap of faith, so to speak. Um, I was a single parent. Ricky, my son Ricky, was 7. I think he was 6.5, 7 years old. And I had been in a number of relationships. I had come out of a marriage that was
Let's say less than,
not healthy,
yeah.
very not healthy. And I was shaken. I was burnt. I called myself burnt toast. I made a decision to leave Brooklyn and get into a relationship with a gentleman and I moved to Westchester. Now, was that the best relationship for me to get involved in? No, it wasn't the healthiest. Um, it wasn't the most serving of me. However, it served me because it took me away from where I was and it allowed me to be replanted in another space.
It was a bridge.
Yeah, oh, a big bridge. Um, and then the bridge burned. The relationship blew up. It blew up.
But you can still to this day say thank you.
Oh my goodness, I am still friends with this person. I'm not only friends with him, but I'm friends with his son who knew my son. I'm friends with his new wife. We travel in some of the same circles and the story, sometimes I don't share it as often as she does at times. And she says how I used to go out with her former husband, her current husband, my former boyfriend. And I always say, thank you very much for sharing him with me first. Um, you know, but the point was that he opened my eyes to some of the things that I could have. I knew I wanted to provide a better life for my son. This was the avenue I chose. Now, was it the best avenue? Yes. Was it the best avenue? No. It was the best avenue because it physically removed me from where I wanted to be, but it was not a great avenue on an emotional side because I was settling and I was selling myself to make the shift. Okay, did it, done, finished, over.
It was almost like the tale of two cities. It was the best of days. It was the worst of days. It
Yes,
was both.
yes.
It was both.
But so I was burnt on relationships at that point. I had dated a few men after that, but I was more concerned with the kind of person that I wanted to bring into my home and be around my son. And I said, you know what? I was looking and looking and I was looking for this perfect person to show up in my life. And that wasn't happening. That was just not happening. Well, then I started to look at myself. I said, you know what? I need to stop looking. I need to stop focusing on everything else out there. I don't know what made me think that way. It just happened. I lost 35 pounds. I started to work out. I did things with my son. I was in a better space and a mindset. And all of a sudden, that perfect person showed up in my life.
When you weren't looking.
I was nowhere looking. I wasn't ready for looking. I didn't want a relationship, but it was there. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because 25 years later, we're still together. But it was the beginning of the first aspect of, how do I see myself? And what did I think I wanted in my life? And I knew it was a good space because I didn't want to change this person. I wasn't looking at any of the imperfections. I wasn't looking at the perfections. I was just looking. I was just admiring how I felt comfortable. There was the space for me.
So, in the past 25 years, you've alluded to having your ups and downs, as all people I know of have in a relationship that lasts more than a week. So,
Very true.
and in that dance of life, we learn to ebb and flow. We learn more about what reciprocity really is. We learn more about forgiving ourselves and forgiving the other for being perfectly imperfect, the gifts of imperfection for sure. And you've also learned how to redefine what having it all is for you each step along the way, so that having it all is about believing that you already have it all.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of the premises of the gratitude practice. In the practice of gratitude, and the law of attraction, by the way, if you want to practice some of these laws, you already express being grateful for already having everything that you have and that you imagine having, as if it's here already. In other words, you don't say, I'll be grateful when. No, I'm grateful now.
You live in the moment.
You
And,
live in-
and even if you don't have something, you live as if you do.
well, but you live a, you know,
Be- when I say living, like, you don't have, so
you're focusing on what you do have. You're not focusing on
what you don't, because that's what you bring to you is what you don't have.
there's wonderful wisdom in the book of Proverbs in the Bible, which talks about, just blessing what you have, being present to what you have, recognizing that what you have is precious and a gift, so that you're always present to what you do have and bless it with gratitude. There's a wonderful film, I think it was a 2013 film called Happy. And
Yeah.
you remember the film? Yeah. And the investigative reporters who were going all over the world interviewing people just in various stations of life went to India, and they interviewed these children and this family that literally lived in a hovel. But to them, they lived in a palace. They saw they saw their lives as blessed because they were blessing being together. They had one another. They valued that. They didn't value the kind of house they lived in or whatever. They didn't even have running water, that kind of thing. So life's all about a perspective, isn't it, Marie?
Oh, so much so. When you were talking about it's what we see, the perception of what we see and how we feel about ourselves. I work with a lot of youth, and I work with a great organization that it's all about adaptive sports for youth and young adults with disabilities. And one of the most wonderful, satisfying feelings is watching a youth who has achieved something that um, they were told they couldn't, and yet they could. But the belief is what is so apparent. Their belief.
Truly.
is that they are doing this. And it's, oh my goodness, it's such a reminder that, again, perception and what we perceive to be real or not real is sometimes not even close to what is.
Absolutely. So, Marie, you know my story, and you know, many years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I had a child who lived 8 months, and from the time she passed tragically, she was born with a heart defect. Nobody could have known. Uh, I had this emptiness in me, this empty hole in my heart. I desperately wanted to have children. And fast forward, I meet my husband, and on the practically the eve of when we were to be married, his eldest son was killed in a car accident. He said to me, Sheila, I release you from your pledge to marry me because I can't imagine ever having more children, and I know you want children. Well, I married him anyway. And I realized that perhaps having children was not in the cards, so I went to graduate school and I got my master's in clinical social work because I wanted to use my nurturing skills. While I was in graduate school, I realized I couldn't live without singing because when I met my husband, I was an aspiring opera singer, and I knew that being an opera singer was not going to fly. Being married to a rabbi, so I had all these obstacles, right? But I kept imagining being a mother. I kept imagining having all these children. And guess how the universe sent them to me? I was cut off at the pass from being an opera singer. And being a social worker was not enough for me. I wanted to continue to sing. So I became a cantor in the synagogue. It would never have occurred to me. By being a cantor in the synagogue, I was blessed by being given this wonderful congregation in New Jersey, and I had hundreds of children.
That's the universe. That's the
And,
she.
and the universe sent me this big house called a synagogue, where they actually called me Mother Earth.
Mm.
They recognized me as being the mother, right? And all these children were my students, and they gathered around me. Now I still have contact with many of them, some of whom I've married. I've officiated at their weddings and at their baby namings, so when they had children, all that sort of thing. Now, in my practice as a relationship coach and intimacy specialist and bereavement counselor, I'm still in intimate connection with people by virtue of the work I do. So I have people telling me all the time, I feel like you're my soul mother.
Mm.
Can I adopt you? So I have people calling me Mama Sheila
Yep.
all over the world. Mama Sheila, how are you? Mama Sheila, just checking in. And people near and dear to me in my area, when I had hip surgery, they were there to help me. In other words, the universe complied because I kept the space open. I believed that somehow I could have everything I wanted, not necessarily in the way I thought.
That's that's, you know, it's funny when you were talking about your story about how you became a cantor and all those children were there. We were, I don't know where I was where we were talking about this, and it was just recently. So there again, here's the universe. This is the story of how, so some of our life has paralleled in terms of relationship, and there it was. You know, Aaron was there for you when that moment was, you know, it's like, oh, he's here. Um, Bill is in my life. Woo, he's here. Um, I too had one child, one biological child. I always wanted more. My father used to say to me that I was supposed to have a passel of kids, that I should have had a basketball team. Well, you know, the cards didn't deal that opportunity to me, but I became a scout leader. And I became and I got involved in again in the organization, with for disabled youth, and I surrounded myself with the youth without even recognizing that that's what I was filling that energy of here. I want the children. I want to feel them. And we were doing numbers the other day, and in scouting alone, in one group for over a 5-year period of 7-year-olds, there were 150 youth
Wow.
that over time I've, had been part of their lives. And I still get Facebook friends. Hey, Mrs. B, what's happening? Or I drive down the road and there's a young man who's now in the police department here in my local community, and stops and we have chats. And I recognize that, yes, while I always wanted to have all those children and I was only blessed with one physically, I was blessed with so many more.
Truly, because if we understand that we're all much bigger than we think, and we all have so much more capacity and possibilities than we think, and if we just lean into and believe in possibilities when we can't see them, the universe sends us incredible surprises and gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues for me. I'm now entering my 8th decade. As you know, I just turned 79.
Mm.
And I feel like I have the world ahead of me, not,
Oh.
not behind me, because I envision living a long, vibrant life. I think I told you this. I see myself wherever I am at my midpoint.
Haven't stopped living yet. Nope, nope, nope.
So remember when I turned 60, I saw that as my midpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Be 120. Well, I just turned 79, so you do the math. I'm going to live to be at least
Of
106.
course.
Right? So, but it's a perspective. Whether or not I get to 100 or 120 or 150 is not so much the issue. It's how I see myself in my life. And if I see myself at a midpoint so that I have as much ahead of me as behind me, I'm always living into my future with every single day with a sense of joy and and anticipation and curiosity and wonderment, because
Ah.
I'm not seeing that I'm not seeing that this is my last year of life or my last decade of life.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I refuse to see it that way because I don't know. I don't know what's around the corner with inventions of any kind whatsoever, whether it's supplementation or devices, energy devices or whatever, that are going to extend our lifespan by decades. We don't know.
So, you were talking about that. So when I think about the future, I don't go too far because, like you said, I don't want to live in the future. I don't want to live in the past. So when I got sober, you live for the moment. You live in the moment and you take every moment and you savor every moment. And that's when I recognize when I'm living outside that moment or living too far into the future. It's the dream and the possibilities are always there for me, and it's always the striving of, there's the I want it all, or I can have it all, but because I already have it already. I have the ability to be able to look at my life in terms of all the possibilities and all the joy, and like you said, all the curiosity. It's here. It's right here, right now.
I think that is the key. The only thing that's real, Marie, is now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you and I can be present to right now, as we are right now, we are experiencing the fullness of everything we are, of everything we think and feel. And as I'm with you at this moment, I'm also present to our history. I'm present to all the wonderful times that we've had over the past 15 years. I, just reminded myself with a giggle about our cruise together and how that was and how that led us to other avenues in our lives. And when we can be present to this moment, we are in the fullness of life because we're here, because we're not being derailed by thinking in the past about what we don't have, or thinking in the future in terms of I don't have enough.
That's having enough. What's enough?
Yeah.
And I have some clients that'll say to me, but, and I go, no,
Take the butt out. Take that
nope,
butt out.
nope, butt is behind you. And I point this way. It's right behind you. The butt is behind you. Okay. The butt's behind you here right now. This space. And I always reference this. This is the space. This is the moment. This is having it all.
So, can you describe for us what it's like for you living in your life now with your dear husband Bill? You've been together 25 years. With your son, with your grandchild, with the people in your life that are the most precious. Give me a picture of what a beautiful day is like for you.
So I'll give you this. And you know the story of my nephew coming to live with us also, Thomas.
Yes.
He now is married with two beautiful daughters of his own. Um, and my son is remarried with his wife has two children. So there's lots of, I call them all grandchildren. I'm not, they're all my grandchildren.
They are.
Because we don't live in this, I don't live in the spaces of steps and they're all grandchildren. I'm Mima to everybody. It's interesting. We were having a conversation. My son and I were having a conversation yesterday. He's at the process of, he's thinking of buying a new house. And I love the thought process behind it because he's dreaming big. He's looking at numbers that at his age, I don't think I was capable of looking at. And yet he's doing this. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. But it wasn't so much the fact that he was dreaming big about this big house. It's what he said to me was, if someone comes to buy my house tomorrow and they offer me a bag of cash and they tell me that I can close this deal in 30 days or 45 days and we're not ready to move to a new house of our own, I told Elisa, guess what? We can just go pack everything up, put it in storage, and we can move in with my mom and Bill.
Terrific.
Now, most people, most parents might think, really? 3 kids, 2 that are living at home, 1 that's coming in and out, 2 huge big dogs, schedules. Both he and Elisa work these crazy schedules of 11 to 7. Their schedules are way different than what we're accustomed to. They work weekends, we're off weekends, all these things. And all I could think about was, wow, he wants to come home.
Beautiful.
When Thomas is up in Saratoga and he talks about the buying a house and he says, I want to, we're thinking of moving and we want to do this and we want to do this. And he and his wife, Stephanie, and the girls are thinking, and Zoe and they're like, oh, we're going to go down this way. We're going to do this. And he said, but you know what, if we're not ready and we make the move, I tell Stephanie all the time, we could just go live with my Aunt Maria and Uncle Billy. And again, oh my God, a house with another dog and 2 kids and little ones under 5 and all this other stuff. And most people would be like, you're kidding, you're crazy. And all I kept thinking was, wow, what a feeling that that's what love is. That your family wants to come home wherever you are.
Now listen to what you're saying. Love is an attitude. It's a way of being. It's not about one person.
Nope.
It's about being the most of who you are in the space of your life, no matter what's going on. So that it's about being open, being generous, and celebrating the connections that matter.
Mm-hmm. And knowing for me, wow, that they want to come home,
Yeah.
okay, that energy, but also that I have it all. I have the careers,
Right.
I have the life, I have the home, I have it. It's mine. It's here. It's right here. And I've been blessed. The universe or my she has blessed me with the capacity and the ability to acknowledge it, to be able to receive it, to be able to give back, to be able to do the circle, the full circle, and to say, I'm worthy. I'm love.
I'm
I am it all.
That is what it's all about. Marie, let's do this again.
Oh, I'd love to do this again.
We'll do part two. There's a riches of people that I am blessed to be able to have conversations with, but we will do part two.
And I'm so honored, and thank you so very much for having me. I'm really excited about your new adventures.
Thank you so much. So tell our listeners how they can find you.
So right now you can find me. I'm on Facebook under Marie Vega-Byrne. That's my personal Facebook page. I also have a business page. It's Beyond Rubies. Or you can email me at Marie at beyondrubies.net. And my phone number is 914-443-7495. And you can leave me a message if I don't grab it right away, and I will get back to you.
Beautiful, beautiful. By the way, just a little PS. The name Beyond Rubies came
Oh,
from a conversation we had years ago about that section from Proverbs talking about beyond.
women are worth far more than rubies and pearls. And that is how the name of the company came about.
That's right.
Because we're all worth, all of us, not just women, we are all worth far more than rubies and
Rubies and
pearls.
pearls. Exactly.
And we could go beyond it.
And we go beyond it. Absolutely. So until next time, this is Sheila Pearl, the Love Doctor, wishing you the blessings of making love better in your life. And we hope that this conversation made a difference for you. See you next time. Bye for now.